All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and featured titan today, all the way from Michigan, John Wentworth. John, thanks so much. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. It is an honor. Did you say this is live?
This is live, everybody. It's out there. Any sneezes or mistakes, it's out for the world. So
Don't say sneeze.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit before we start. You're awesome.
Thanks, John. Yeah, and seriously, it was just wonderful just for us to connect a little bit, like you said, before we went live out here. But I can't wait to dive into the series of questions, really just share your story, tools, tactics, and thought process from one of the best and brightest in the real estate world. So without further ado, John, if you're ready, let's just jump in.
Let's rock and roll, man. I appreciate it again, and just happy to share. And, like we said before, it might be popular or unpopular, but it's going to be the truth and from the heart. So
that's the best. And that is popular in my mind and the Titan Nation. I know it. So John, let's go into, I guess the first question, telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. I am uneducated. I don't read well. I don't spell, but I can sell. I'm just a man that is rooted in my faith, not always as much as I want to be, but it's certainly important to me. I'm someone that is high. My high level IQ is emotion. I understand people, and people really motivate me. And so, selling a lot of real estate is great, but I just love people, and I love the opportunity to provide a platform for people to grow personally and professionally.
Wow. And again, that tells everybody, getting to know John a little bit here, which is the important part. Now, I know that there's a lot of people who are watching or listening to this right now. They want to know the background. So I guess, John, could you talk about your career path and what got you into real estate in the first place? Why, and what brought you to where you are to today?
Well, it's an interesting story. I will say this. I went from hockey to horses to homes.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that, right? So I've always been, growing up, very passionate about athletics in general. I kind of honed in on hockey. That was my sport. I was a goalie. I had big aspirations. I also had a childhood that squashed a lot of my dreams from a parenting level. And so I just always followed what I was passionate about. And one day our hockey team went to the racetrack, the horse track. Okay. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Screw hockey. I want to do that. And within a short time, I was cleaning stalls for a gentleman. It was ironic because, God puts things in our path, and sometimes we see them and sometimes we don't. And when we're open to them and when we're looking for them, we see them. But somebody that I knew from school knew the track announcer at the specific racetrack here in Michigan.
Wow.
And that announcer had a horse with a trainer. And so through that connection, I ended up cleaning stalls. And then I went on a 15-year run of owning, training, driving standard bred horses that took me all over the country, including living in Quebec.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then from there, I grew homesick, quite honestly. I had a son at home. I just got tired of going back and forth from Ottawa, essentially, to back home here in Michigan. And I threw in the towel one day. I said, I'm just done. Wow. And started flipping houses. Which is super ironic because I don't even own a screwdriver to this day. Like, I don't have any skills in that stuff.
Oh, John, I love it.
But I had connections, right? And so I started doing that. And then as I started, as these homes started to sell, I thought, well, geez, I think I can do this. And I think I can do it at a different, I don't want to say better, because some of the people we worked with did a fine job, but I felt like there was so much missing inside of the industry. And I felt like, or I knew actually that I could bring that to the industry. And so that's kind of where it all began. I got my license while the market was in a downturn, and the rest is history, as they say.
Unbelievable. And again, going through that process, as you said, kind of hockey and horses and then houses. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. And going through and to paint that picture for everybody is absolutely incredible. I want to dive a little bit deeper into your business and your structure too, because I mean, what you're doing and what you have done is just absolutely incredible. I mean, last year, I think it was over 128 million in production, and you're nationally ranked, and obviously locally ranked through Michigan number 7 in Michigan. And is that as a team production, or what is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
team production. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, team production number 7 in Michigan, and like 178 across the United States. I mean, that's huge, John. That's some big stuff.
It is. It's humbling to hear you say it, honestly, and as you say it, all I think about are all the people inside of our business, inside of our organization. We have staff that's been with us since day one. Stacy, shout out Stacy. She's been with us 10 years, Brooke 9 years. And I think back at that it's just a blessing to have those type of people in your life for that long. And here we are right at today going through these uncertain times right now, but knowing that they have security in who we are as a brand and who we are as people, that everything's going to be fine. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be fine.
Right. And again, I think that's a huge reflection on yourself and your character. I mean, bringing it about the team and everybody that's around you. I think that the best leaders and the best producers, they really focus on those things. And we were speaking a little bit earlier just about the video that you posted up today. And gosh, what a wonderful message and true leadership out there, not just to your local markets, but the real estate industry. So if you guys haven't seen John's video that he put up about, open house, things like that, take a look at that, please. It's on his newsfeed. It's definitely just amazing stuff that you're putting out there, John. But
well, thank you. I mean, it's a tough decision to make, and at the same time, I think it was the right decision. And a lot of times, the right decisions are the tough ones.
Well said. Truly well said. And, again, this is uncertain times, as you said, but, we want to talk about the positives and moving and pivoting and not pausing our businesses. And again, learning from the best and brightest minds, which is why you're here, John. So again, thank you so much. I want to shift gears to dive a little deeper into you as a person. And this next question is the why question. So John, what motivates you to do what you do, getting out of bed every day and doing it to the level that you do it at? What's your why?
Greg, honestly, I will share this very openly. As we began to talk, I felt very connected to you. I can tell that you're a great person.
Thank you. Likewise.
Has a great integrity, leads with your heart. And so you might get me a little bit deeper than somebody else would today.
All right.
But my why, I think that's a little bit too cliche, honestly. I think,
Sure.
When we talk about this why, people then end up searching for their why instead of friggin' going and working. And I'm passionate about doing everything that I can do to the best of my ability, whatever it is. And that served me well, and I think that would serve anybody well, because frankly, selling homes, that's not hard, right? I mean, if you have work ethic and the ability to connect with people, selling homes isn't hard because there is no trick to it. It's just showing up every day and doing the work, but I think doing it from your heart as opposed to chasing a commission.
Wow.
And I think, right now, a lot of that's being exposed inside of our industry, unfortunately.
Sure.
And so I don't really have a huge why other than to be the best that I can be at whatever the heck I'm doing. Right. If that's raising horses, I've never touched a horse in my life. And within 7, 8, 9 years, I was one of the leading drivers and trainers in North America. Now that doesn't make me great. It just shows you that, man, if you put passion behind, like I told you earlier, I don't read well. I don't read well. I mean, I try, but I just don't retain it. But I read a book this damn big about training horses because I was passionate about it.
Wow.
Right. And I think that is the biggest thing, is you've got to follow, I don't know about your dreams, follow what you're passionate about. And instead of trying to find your why, just what is your right now? What do you love right now, and pour yourself into that. So that served me well, man. Just working my tail off.
Yeah. And John,
no,
you're totally good. And you can, if it comes out, it comes out. But John, I think that's a beautiful example of you speaking to the cliche. I know that is thrown around quite a bit. What's your why? What's going on? And I agree with you, really being motivated to being the best version of yourself. And in turn, there is a big why on top of that, though, John. I'm kind of reading into it, and I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No,
but for me, the thought process is you being the best version of yourself and working hard consistently and doing it to the highest of standards. You're affecting everybody in your life. You're affecting everybody in your world. You're talking about your team. You're talking about your family. You're talking about your clients and your community. You doing what you're doing, lack of a why, is still a really big why, in my opinion. So that speaks for itself.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do. I think that showing up every day is super important.
Yeah.
Every day isn't going to be the greatest day of your life, but you get to choose to wake up the next day and go try to make the next day the best day of your life. And so, it's just, there's nothing wrong with creating a why.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
I just, so many people have done it and it doesn't get them out of bed.
Right. Don't use that as an excuse if you haven't found it. Just go and do the work. Find your passion, and the rest will work itself out.
Whatever's in front of you right now, pour yourself into it, and it will be fruitful, whatever it is. And if you don't love it, you're not going to pour yourself into it, and you're going to suck at it. So find out what you love. I think that's the biggest. A lot of this Gary V talk, and I'm not trying to bring up Gary V or talk down, but there is something to be said for I was told my whole life that I was going to work at GM, at General Motors, right? Because that's what people in our city did. I'm like, I don't do that shit. I don't want to work in that thing.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with it, man. It just wasn't for me. It was like trying to send me to school. That wasn't great for me either.
Right.
But I just, again, man, you just got to be passionate about what you do. And then even then, passion isn't enough. You've got to show up and do the work, and you got to do it to the best of your ability. And I think too many times people are looking, especially now, this word of entrepreneurship, and people are looking for this quick fix.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that, though, honestly comes from, and I was guilty of it. So I can say this. I pulled a friggin' horse trailer with a Cadillac Escalade that I couldn't even friggin' afford. Right. Because I didn't have this, right. Because I didn't have this foundation in my life to know that no matter what I do, as long as I'm serving the Lord, everything's going to be fine. It's like making that decision today about the open houses, right? It was the right decision to make, plain and simple.
Wow, John. And again, if anybody's watching or listening, that just by itself would have completed an episode. That is huge information already, but we still got a lot more to go through, John. But I agree with everything that you're saying. And I think those foundations are super important. On that similar vein, because this next question is a crowd pleaser out for everybody who's watching or listening in the Titan Nation. They want to learn from the best of the best, from the Titans specifically. So if you could look back at your career thus far, John, and pick or choose one or two things you added to your business that took it from one level to the next, you really saw that change, that jump. What's that look like for you?
Well, I would not resort to one or two or three specific tools. Sure. I would go back to picking one, creating the best system you can around it, right? Applying some common sense. Most of the things that we hear, the tools, the tricks, there really aren't any tricks, but the tools, whether it's a lead source, whether it's an open house, whether it's farming, there's so many different things. Right. But I would say just take one, create a system that makes it as close to foolproof as possible, implement it, and stay on top of it. And don't start the second one until you've got the first one dialed in. And I think if people because right now it's shiny object, right?
Sure.
They want this and this and this and this and this. I spoke in New Orleans, and I might have put my foot in my mouth and actually called and apologized to this person. Someone had been on stage earlier and talked about you've got to have 15 different lead sources. And I'm like, screw that, man.
Wow.
Just have 3.
Yeah.
Like have 3, but be totally dialed into them because truly 3 is enough. Now that doesn't mean that you don't look to build the 4th and the 5th, but I think so often people are just they're looking for what's the one thing that's going to put me over the top, and there is no one thing.
Right. Well said.
And even if there were the one thing and you didn't create a system around it to service what that was, then that won't take you there either. So,
sure.
So looking back, I digress a little bit, but looking back and trying to answer that question, what's the one thing? Quite honestly, it would still be the same answer. It would be, look, everybody knows what the tools are.
Sure.
They're all over the internet. You're bombarded with them on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Some are good. Some probably aren't. You've got to apply some common sense to where you're going to put your money, where you're going to put your time. But then creating I say foolproof, right? Nothing's foolproof.
Sure.
But creating a system as close to foolproof as possible. Zillow, for example, I'll use that, okay? Because everybody knows Zillow.
Right.
We have a hefty spend on Zillow. I'm embarrassed to even say what the heck it is. But we grew our business without Zillow. I just got into Zillow like 3 years ago. But even then, we sucked at it.
Right.
And in fact, a manager came to me one day and he goes, "We're going to drop our Zillow spend." I'm like, "All right, yeah, no problem." And I went in my office and I thought, well, they're on the New York Stock Exchange and we're nobody. So maybe we have to look at us. Maybe we have to look at what we're doing. And we did. I called the guy back like an hour later. I said, "Don't drop the spend. Let's chat. Let's dive into it." And we created a system the best we could possibly create. Okay. And within a year, we were hitting 10% conversion. And now, as I said, we spend a lot of money on Zillow. It's about 25% of our business.
Okay. But you look at the process of what you went through. And again, not just picking every single shiny object and anything that's new or exciting, but you're dialing it into the fundamentals that are working for you, your structure, and your actual business itself. But then I agree with that. Taking a look at it from that open eye, the unbiased source, and saying, how can we really make this as consistent as
Yeah.
possible? Not just it pop real quick and then drift away. And but that's a mindset. That's a process that you have to have as a
Yeah.
leader, if you're an individual or a team. But that's great advice all the way through and through. And certain things come and go. Markets change, consumers change, but you got to be able to adapt and understand that. But I would agree with you. I think 15 lead sources, that's pretty crazy.
That's pretty great.
But really honing in and mastering your craft, and then mastering it again and mastering it again, but do it in the right ways. And there are a lot of professionals out there that try to leapfrog, or they look for the silver bullet or that quick fix.
Yeah.
And there is no such thing. There is no elevator to success. You got to take the stairs.
Well, and there's not sustainability in it either, right? I mean, if like, let's just say, I mean, you open a brand new company, you just go spend all kinds of money on Zillow and you get all these leads, but is that sustainable? Because what if Zillow's platform changes, right? What if, to me, sustainability is fundamental, like a house, right? Like building a house, that foundation of your business. So these times that we're in right now,
Right.
I know how strong our foundation is,
Sure.
right? I know that we can get rid of some things and still be fine because we have many past clients that we've taken very good care of.
Right.
So I just think, human nature to me is a very interesting thing, because I think that it is, it's got duality, right? It can help you and it can harm you. And because you mentioned a word earlier that I really like, and for me, I relate it back to human nature, which is you've got to be able to make decisions without bias.
Yeah.
What you think doesn't mean jack shit.
Sure.
Nothing. What the market is going to respond to is really all that matters. And too often I think that people, they're emotional, right? They get emotional inside of these business decisions. And, honestly, I feel like that doesn't serve you well unless it's emotion for people. I always say I lead the business with my heart, and it's cost me money, and I'm totally fine with it. Right.
Right.
Never cost me any sleep.
Sure. And that to me, your time and your moral compass and ethics, that's invaluable. I mean, you have to look at it from that standpoint, and testing things out. Nothing's perfect. You're gonna fall forward in some instances, but there's certain things that you find on the foundations of the people you surround yourself with and the thought process that you have to come to the conclusion of the decisions you make. And John, but I think that is really good dialogue for people to dive into and really evaluate their lives and their businesses and how they're making their decisions. And I get the emotional side, but at the end of the day, it's not about us, right?
Yeah.
It's about our clients, and it's about our communities and our team. But you have to kind of take yourself out of the equation. I say that so many times. I love the fact that you echoed that in through this particular podcast. Is when you're putting it out there to the world, that's what the truth is. I mean, you and I could think this is the best thing in the world. As soon as it goes out to the market, let them give you the feedback, understand, and then try to make it better and do it again and again and again and again.
Yeah, you've got to stay in the box, right? I mean, you've got to keep refining that. It's like Zillow, and again, I it's not a plug for Zillow. I wish I owned them. But take any lead source, right? Open houses. To me, open houses are, well, I think they're one of the greatest things that exist in our industry.
Sure.
On a day that I just announced we were canceling, like we had 11 open houses here in a couple of days coming up. So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But use, again, any lead source, right?
Sure.
You still have to continue to grow. You have to learn. You have to refine all the time. There's nothing that you're just going to set and forget.
Yep.
You've got to dive into it. And to do that, you've got to track it. And tracking sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, just honestly, like, it sucks. Nobody wants to do that.
It's not fun.
But it's important. And I think right now, actually, with what's going on, in our world, to be able to look at a business and understand, hey, and this could be everybody right now. And people might need to look at shedding cost, right? Well, you better be able to do it first without disrupting your people.
Agreed.
Especially right now, right? Yep. But I think the truth is we don't know where we're going, and if you don't have anything at all to reflect back on numbers wise, you're not going to know where your compass is going to take you. And I think that's a little bit scary for people, And so it's fun times, man.
It's something else, John. But I mean, everything is cyclical, and there's ups and downs and ebbs and flows, but the solid foundations, as you said, they're the ones who are there, and that's what everybody needs to strive for and reflect to. And again, listening or watching, professionals like you that hit that higher standards, that understand these things. I mean, it's been done. This is nothing that's brand new. So just do the work, put the time in, and then learn from greatness. Like we're talking to here with John.
I started in 2008. I didn't have a penny to my name. I mean, I was focused on how can I eat,
Sure.
right? I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every freaking day, and feeding the crust to the dog.
Yeah.
So I'm built for this. My childhood built me for this. It doesn't mean that it's that I shared this with my team, right? Because my team's like, man, you seem totally fine. I'm like, well, I am. That's my job, to be totally fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also need to be sensitive to the people that maybe aren't totally fine. And I think that that's one of the things that no matter what the circumstance is, you've got to have a positive mindset. As I said earlier, you got to wake up every day ready to make it the best day of your life, and just keep pushing through. Because you're right. We've been through many things, and everything's going to be okay.
I love that. And that message rings through to everybody out there who's watching and listening. So John, I want to shift gears into the tricky part of this particular interview and series, and it ends up being the challenge question. So I let every Titan know, kind of leading into it, we all have challenges and struggles in our lives, whether it's personal or professional. No one's exempt, whether it's in the past, we're dealing with it now, like so many of us are dealing with challenges now, or we haven't yet, and it's into the future. But I'm a firm believer it's not so much what happens, but what we learn and what we can grow and respond that really makes the difference. And not to downplay pain or sorrow or frustration, but John, if you could share a challenge or two that you dealt with personally or professionally that you became stronger because of it, that you really learned from, what's that look like for you?
Oh, man. First of all, everybody has challenges in life, and I've shared my personal story on the stage a few times, not many. I've shared it inside of our church a few times, not many. And so often people say to me, and this is important, so catch this, because everybody, whatever Greg's biggest challenge or biggest level of pain was, even if it wasn't compared to mine on that level,
right,
it's still Greg's biggest.
Correct.
Right. And so everybody has that one big thing, or those two big things, or those three or four big things,
Right.
And I think that just keeps me really compassionate towards people. I'm hugging everybody everywhere I go, whether I really, like, if I see you, I'm hugging you.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
That's just how I am. So I would say this, though: you've got to embrace all the stuff that happens to you as well. So many times people tell us, "Well, just forget about it." No, because it's not going to go away. You've got to look at it. You've got to learn from it, and you've got to embrace it. I grew up in a crazy childhood. I had a crazy household. I was molested by my mother. Later to find her, she had committed suicide, and I found her. My dad became an alcoholic. He became very abusive. And then at the same time, he provided a great life for me, right? I mean, I had all the toys. I had a motorcycle. I had a pool. I had a basketball court. Like, he facilitated all of those things, and at the same time told me I would never amount to anything, right? So maybe that's my why, is to show that I will amount to something.
Okay.
But I just think, like, okay, so I rattle that off real quickly, right? Because then I don't get super emotional.
No, I get it. I totally
And
get
I share it for the purpose of I don't want any pity.
Right.
In fact, I'm glad all that shit happened, because it's made me who I am.
Right.
And I think that's, to answer your question, we've got to embrace the things that we've been through. We've got to learn from that. We've got to look at them to really grow from them. And I suppressed that for a long time. I did that through alcoholism. Thank God I never got into drugs, because I'd try to jump off a freaking roof somewhere.
Wow.
But I suppressed that for a long time, and then I did this one thing that changed my life, and it's called surrender.
Okay.
And a story worth sharing. I was at home. I was watching ESPN, as I did every single morning, getting ready to go to work. I had just played in a hockey tournament. I was extremely hungover, and an episode came on ESPN about a gentleman named Todd Crandall. And shout out to Todd Crandall. If you have not seen him, Google him. Racing for Recovery. Great man. He's changing a lot of lives. Changed my life. And I'm watching this episode, and it's a reflection of me. He was a goalie in hockey. His mother committed suicide. I mean, the parallels were just unreal.
Wow.
And I had so I said earlier, right, when you're looking, you will find, and And I was just, at that point, I was done. I just wanted to surrender.
Mm.
I just wanted to be done with the fight that I was in of trying to control all of these feelings that I had been harboring for so long.
Wow.
And I sent an email to this guy by Googling him. I mean, honestly, I didn't even freaking know how to email at that point. Like, I had just got into real estate,
Oh.
and you don't email a lot when you train horses. Well, they probably do nowadays,
Sure.
but I was driving to work and I get a phone call from a 419 area code,
Mm.
and it was Todd.
Wow.
And I sent him this email, and I mean, I remember specifically what it said.
Mm.
And he called, and about a year later, he was the best man at my wedding.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So, it just, and still, to this day, 15 days or 15 years, well, I guess 11 years later, still looking at all of this stuff and trying to be a better person each and every day, because it's a nonstop, it's nonstop work, man.
Hmm. And John, I just, there's so much that you shared there, and I want to thank you first and foremost for sharing. It's not easy to do, but the fact that you initially stated, which I absolutely love, is that everything that each one of us are dealing with is the highest version of what our pain is and what
Mm-hmm.
we've dealt with in our lives. And I love the fact that you were showing respect to everyone in so many variations. The things that you had just mentioned, I mean, those are real serious things. And again, there's so many people who are watching or listening that I know that touched them very specifically, because so many of us go through a lot of the same struggles. But not all of us come out with that necessary positive outcome like you did. And I guess the goal is to anybody who's watching or listening, if any of that touched you, just look at John and see what he's accomplished and done, and know that didn't slow him. He kept moving, and look at what you've done with your life and what you're doing and the impact that you're having on everybody around you. I mean, this is just beautiful stuff. And that's one of my favorite portions of this, is really just, you can't really see the light without the dark, the good without the bad. And I really think that just evolves through everybody's lives. But the message is, keep going forward, have that positive mentality. It's not easy. We're not downplaying it, but at the end of the day, you have a choice. And John, I love your choices. What you were doing and what you've done is incredible, my friend. So it's inspiring me.
I love most of my choices. My wife would tell you she loves most of my choices.
Oh, good woman, good woman.
But every day it's just how do we improve? How do we get better? How do we become the best version of ourselves? And I think too much in business, whether it's real estate or business in general, so much of society tells us that get rich, drive a fancy car, get a fresh watch, and there's nothing wrong with those things, right? But they will certainly not fulfill you. They will not provide you with true contentment. And so I think inside of that, you used a word earlier, truth, right? Like, I'm very, I'll jump on and go live in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
I don't have anything to hide. I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I'm okay with all of it. I got a crooked mouth, a bald head. I don't give a shit. I'm very content in who I am. It doesn't make me perfect by any means,
Right.
but it just, I sleep pretty good at night, and I'm blessed by the Lord to have an amazing wife that trusts me. Like, the Lord delivered her to me.
Wow.
Once I met Todd Crandall and let go of control, and just kind of surrendered to trying to get better. I think when I look back at that email that I sent him, and I think about those words that I used inside of that email, it breaks my heart to know that I was feeling that way.
Right.
But I'm also very proud of myself, and I use that word proud very. I try to be very specific when I use it, because pride can be a bad thing, right? And then also it can be good. But I'm proud of myself in the moment that I surrendered, and that I was so vulnerable to say the words that I said to him, to get that damn phone to ring, because that day changed not just my life, but a whole lot of lives. So.
Unreal. Well, and truly, because everybody's lives that you've affected into the future past that point, true, right? Into today. So it's that the dominoes or the ripple effect. We just don't know how far that's going to go. And John, I'm glad. I can just say it right here and there. And anybody knows you, loves you, respects you, they agree 100%. I do want to shift gears on this one to a slightly softer question here, but this is actually one of my favorites. And this is a travel back in time question. So at the end of the day, obviously we don't want to travel back and change anything, because as you said earlier, everything you went through made you who you are. So it's not necessarily to go back and change any of that. But if you could look back and give your younger self a piece of advice or two, any age range, any time frame, what would you say to your younger self?
So easy. It's such an
Okay.
easy question, man.
Hmm.
I tell you what, I met the Lord 7 years ago.
Hmm.
I grew up, I didn't have any, I went to church with my grandma a few times, right? And of course
Sure.
I kicked and screamed all the way there and home. But I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And
Hmm.
it's such an easy question.
Hmm.
And it's just right here because it sets you free,
Hmm.
to know that you are truly loved,
Hmm.
um, unconditionally. It's such an
Yeah.
amazing thing. I mean, think about it. That's what you're all striving for, right? We just talked
Sure.
about cars and all this other shit.
Hmm.
And I know people say, well, how can you swear and talk about Jesus? Well, I'm
Yeah.
not a preacher. I mean,
Right.
not yet,
That's
right?
fair. That's fair.
Uh, so, but I just I'm passionate, as I said, and when I get fired up, I get rocking and rolling.
Hmm.
But I was invited to a men's retreat at
Okay.
what is now my church. At the time, it wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, my children were baptized, and I sat there and didn't really even understand it.
Wow.
Because my wife facilitated
Hmm.
that. But I got invited to a men's retreat. I'm like, nah, I don't want to go to that. I'm good. I'm making some money. Everything's good. I'm
Right.
married. Everything's good. And then somebody else invited me to the same retreat. And I was like, this could be good for business.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Sure.
selfish. And I tell you what, I cried for 2 days straight. I mean, I cried for 2 days straight.
Wow,
I'm not even
John.
kidding. And, I met the Lord.
Hmm.
And, and the presence of the Holy Spirit. And it was just so powerful to be able to go to the altar and forgive my mom,
Hmm.
to forgive my dad. And obviously my mother's passed, right?
Okay.
So to be able to forgive her was huge.
Hmm.
But to be able to forgive my dad was even more important because he's still alive.
Wow.
And the Lord will work in mighty ways.
Hmm.
My dad, as I said, was a hardcore alcoholic for a long time, and so much to the point that he ended up almost dying. And I'll share this story. And look, why would I share this story? Well, because it matters, right?
Hmm.
Because he
Sure.
came out the other side in God's glory.
Hmm.
He was on a ventilator for 2 weeks, and I'll never forget. I was driving to visit him. He
Hmm.
ended up in a coma. He was on a ventilator for 2 weeks. He damn near died.
Wow.
And at that time, I had zero relationship with him. I
Hmm.
mean, I didn't like him, right? I
Sure.
mean, he was very mentally, verbally, he was abusive,
Yeah.
because he was hurting
Hmm.
so much. He had never forgiven my mom, which means he had probably never forgiven himself.
Right.
And I was driving to the hospital to visit him, and a friend, past client who turned into a friend, called me and he said, Johnny, calls me Johnny.
Hmm.
He said, Johnny, I just we pulled the tube on your dad and we had to reintubate him. I don't think he's going to make it. And I did a U-turn. I drove to the chapel where I experienced God's glory. And I mean, I hit my knees so hard they scabbed, I'm sure. And I
Wow.
just said to God, I said, bring him back and I will bring him to you.
Hmm.
And 2 weeks later, he was off the ventilator. And then they moved him in with me, which was very interesting.
Okay.
With our family he lived with. And I will tell
Yeah.
you what, washing the feet of a man that you've hated for many years is not easy to do.
Huh.
I couldn't do it
Yeah.
without the glory of God.
Hmm.
I read him Proverbs every night.
Wow.
Some days he was open to it, some days he wasn't.
Hmm.
But that foundation is so important. And about a year and a half later, I dropped him off at the men's retreat,
Hmm.
and he's been sober since. He ended
Wow.
up on the pastoral committee. He was a lunch liaison at the school. He's involved in our children's lives, and he wasn't really before. And so it's
Wow.
just a testament to, and here's the thing, like, death isn't enough, right?
Hmm.
Because after he had gone through this whole thing and he was starting to get back on his feet and move around, I was coming downstairs and he's getting ready to drink out of a bottle of wine.
Hmm.
So death wasn't enough,
Wow.
but God's grace was. And so just, that's an easy question, man. I would just be in the Lord so much sooner
Wow.
than I was, but I wouldn't
What
change.
What a beautiful message though, John. I mean, and that's just a big shout out to everybody who's watching or listening to this. I know that you're touching the hearts and spirits of so many people. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful message. And again, anybody who needs to hear that, and I don't want to throw you under the bus per se though, John, but I mean, if anybody really wants to talk to you, that there's so many different ways that they can reach out and have conversations, communicate. I mean, I know you're a super busy guy, but just like you reaching out to someone, I mean, I think everybody should reach up we have to reciprocate and reach back down. And
I love that.
I think that would be really cool. I mean, again, at your own time frame. I mean, if anybody blows up his DMs, I'm sorry.
I love that. I think we talk about that on our team, right? I mean, it's important to if you need help, reach up. Like if you don't ask for it, people don't know.
Right.
And if you're rocking and rolling, well, the best way to stay in that zone is to reach down and help others. And so I think that's super important. And anybody can reach out to me anytime. I mean, I just put a post up a couple days ago about suicide, because I know it, I lived it, right? And with all of these things going on in our world today, I think it's easy to forget that how I feel is different than how other people feel. And so literally I put a post out that if anybody just wanted to talk, if they're feeling anxiety, if they're sad, if they're, worse, call me, DM me, like 100%. I think that's our job as human beings.
Love it. John, a heart of gold. I mean, and that's an understatement with this man here, everybody. This is fantastic. John, I want to move on to the next question. This is, we're almost there. We got a couple left, but this one in particular is a secondary crowd pleaser. Everybody also wants to learn how the Titans are feeding their minds. Now, again, I read you loud and clear with, reading and spelling, everything along those lines. and I get it. And retention, I mean, it's just tough. You guys are doing so many things all at once. You're learning so many different facets of your business. And, but everybody does want to know how the Titans are learning and they're growing mentally. So whether it is books, podcasts, influencers, if you're going to conferences, I mean, having masterminds, how are you feeding your mind, John?
No, it's a great question. And I will say this, I think that, information is so readily available right now, right? It's kind of like lead sources. When I started in real estate, to figure out, okay, what's a lead source? How do I get them?
How does that happen?
And now they're everywhere, and information is everywhere. I mean, just Google that shit, it's everywhere. So I really believe that the fastest way to get that information going is to work on yourself first, is to be cognizant of self-growth, because I think if you grow personally, you're automatically going to grow professionally. Wow. So honestly, I don't watch podcasts. I watch yours, of course.
Oh, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
No, I just, it's information overload sometimes, it's interesting because a few months back I went through, I'm no different than anyone, right? I got my phone all the time with me and I'm on social media like crazy. But then I started to think, like, there's so much information now that I need to just start getting rid of some so that I can focus on one or two, again, kind of like the lead sources. Yeah. And it's been interesting to do that. And I'll share just an example of what do I mean by that. Yeah. Keith Evans, who is become a good friend of mine, ex-Super Bowl champion. He just a great guy. And so I follow him closely, right? Because I believe in his heart. And so I believe in his message. Now that's totally unrelated to real estate.
Sure.
And then on the other hand, I've got my personal coach and friend, John Sheplack, right? Which is, well, it's not just all real estate either, because our first 12 coaching calls, I cried every freaking call. Wow. I said, I got to break up with you for a while, man. But inside of that, for him to help me grow professionally, he first had to help me grow personally. And so I think on a personal level is super important because, hey, here's the other thing, man. You might go find the magic trick, but when you get there, it doesn't mean you're going to be happy.
Sure.
And so really searching for that foundational growth that will sustain you through whatever comes along. With that said, I think that any informational book that you can really, just like that lead source, that you can pour yourself into and take something out of. I don't go to conferences anymore. I used to go to some real estate conferences, and I really got involved in coaching to learn how to run the business, not really to learn how to sell, because selling shit's easy.
Sure.
And it is.
Right.
Because you don't have to sell, you just have to serve people. If you do that from your heart, it's not that difficult.
Right.
So unfortunately, I don't have that book that you guys can go read that's going to make you super successful. But what I would say to anyone listening is that you already know. Information's everywhere. Now you have to apply it.
Right.
That's on you. That's not on the book. That's not on the lead source. That's on you guys. And that just comes from, man, you've got to be relentless work ethic, and you've got to be relentless in outworking everybody else. I mean, it really just comes down to that, because it's not about how smart you are. That's not, I mean, that's great, but you don't have to be a genius. I've proven that.
Yeah. Right here, everybody. This is a
Right
proven
here.
source. But no, John, I mean, the continual message throughout this particular episode is, obviously building the foundations all the way throughout your life, business, personally, spiritually, health-wise, all that. I mean, that is such huge advice. But then talking about the massive amounts of consistent action, that's it. I mean, you could read a million books and
Yeah.
apply nothing, as opposed to reading one and then actually applying, you're going to have massive amounts of results because you actually took the steps.
Yeah. Instead of telling people that you've read 15 books, why don't you tell somebody you read one book 15 times?
Beautiful.
Right? Because literally, the book that Gary Keller wrote, I don't even remember the name of the damn thing, Millionaire Real Estate Agent or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I've read 3 books in my life. Okay. That's one. Karen Trainer to the Trotter and Pacer is number 2. And I read both of those many, many times. And then Old Yeller because I had to in 6th grade.
Good man. Good man.
Now, I'm still reading this one, and I probably will never stop. But I certainly haven't gotten through that as a whole book yet. But that's my point is, instead of reading 15 books and just rattling off, oh, yeah, I read 15 books, I'm going to read the next one. So what?
Yeah.
If you're not getting something from that you can apply. So I would say read one book, and I don't know that you have to read it 15 times. But the point is to really, understand it. So that you can darn near rewrite the thing. And speaking of writing, you asked me earlier, is there anything I'm going to plug? And it's like, no, but I still have that burning desire to write a book, and a book to help just people of abuse, people that need forgiveness, people that need God in their life. But when that'll be, I don't know. I guess when the Lord leads that, I've
John,
just
Well, I was going to say, when you do that, John, please let me know. And I would love to share that with the world, anybody that I can. Because if that book has a fraction of what we've been covering just over this short time period, it's going to be absolutely incredible. There's no doubt in my mind, for sure. But
I know about people.
Yeah, no, but when it comes down to it though, John, I mean, I love your thought process and everything that you're breaking down. And again, there's so many true statements into there and there's so many wise words, but just really listen to what he's saying. Watch John and so many of the others who are really doing it to the highest of standards. And there's not one size fits all. There's so many different ways to conduct a life and a business, but there's so much in here that we could all apply. It's not even funny.
Yeah. One of the biggest things we talk about with people on our team is, money is a vehicle, right? I mean, look, I'm not saying any of those things are bad.
Sure.
I'm standing in a nice house looking at a lake that I always dreamed of living on. And so none of those things are bad, but I will tell you, there's a time that I lived on this lake and I wasn't as fulfilled and content as I am now. And it's not because of money. So, it's just, well.
Yeah. I mean, you said it right, John. I mean, that's through and through all the way. And again, it's not the fact that money is a bad thing. It's the more we make, the more we can give, the more we can serve. And, that is a fundamental, but that's not the reason. That's not the driving force. And making yourself happy and making sure that you're passionate about what you're doing. If you really, truly are, the money will come.
The money will take care of itself. The money will take care of it. I always tell these guys, all you got to do is work hard, serve people from your heart, love what you do. The money will automatically take care of itself. And it just is. And I think that is relative to right now, with everything that's going on in our world with this coronavirus, is that you're seeing some people panicking a little bit in our industry. And they're continuing to send a message of sales as opposed to compassion. I think that's where we all need to be right now, is in a mode of instead of trying to sell, try to just go back to serving. We just pulled all of our billboards. Not that we have like 20 of them, but we have a good number. We pulled all of them because they had a marketing message on them. And we went back and we just put up one of our core values, which is love, serve, and care. No phone number, no call to action, just a voice that we all need to be aware of in these times.
John, and as you were saying that, my thought process went to, in a perfect world, and maybe anybody who's watching or listening to this can really take this to heart, is we should just always be from that mentality and never from the sales side.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And it shouldn't have to take something like this for us to reflect and look, but I know that it does. Most of us are reactive and not necessarily proactive, and we get wrapped up in our lives and our worlds, and obviously hitting KPIs and doing numbers and beating out goals from last year. I mean, we're all very motivated and driven, but I think that message it was super clear as you were saying that. I said, we should always just be focusing on that, no matter what the circumstances are. And I just think that's a beautiful message.
No, 100%. And it's interesting because, I stand here, I'm in my home office, our
Yep.
bedroom,
Sure.
and I think about just all of the effort and time and love that we put into everything in our marketplace. And I got to make sure that I continue to bring that home with me too. Right. And so I'm glad that I'm standing here because it's reiterating that too.
I love it. This is a beautiful conversation, John. And I don't want it to come to an end, but it is at the last question. At the end of the day, this has just been a beautiful ride, a wonderful conversation. And I've just been blessed to have you in my life, even for this time frame. And I know that everybody out there is feeling this as well. But this last question is the quote or mantra that sums you up as a man, as a professional. What's that look like for you, John?
Oh, shoot. I'm just laughing because I don't have an answer to any of these questions.
No, this is great. This is great. This is real. That's the point.
I who needs that shit? You know what I mean? Who needs that? I don't have that. The quote, I don't have. The mantra, I don't have. I just know that if I wake up every day and I do the best I can do, it's good enough. And I think that you can't sell yourself short on good enough though either, right?
Right.
You can't put in 80% of the effort and say, oh, that was good enough, because no, it wasn't.
Correct.
And I think that, just in general, I think society as a whole needs to step up, right? If you want to be a Titan, if you want to be a pro, I think about athletes,
Sure.
people look at successful people like me, for example, right? I'm on billboards. I don't want to be on a damn billboard. It's just part of the gig.
Sure.
People look at that and go, oh yeah, overnight sensation. They don't see when I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Right.
And so I think that's the message, is that everything, anything is available for everyone. But you've got to be willing to put in the work, and you've got to be relentless. I always think about when my wife and I, when we were just married, early in our relationship. And literally I was trying to pay, I had an apartment, well, it was a house I was paying $800 a month for, and I got a roommate to pay half. I was spending $400 a month and had no money. And so to go from there to here, is certainly an amazing journey. Something that I didn't set out to have our own brand and our own building and 35 people on our team. I just did the right thing, and I worked my tail off, and the Lord's blessed me. And I still got a lot to do.
Yeah.
I still got a lot to do.
I would agree with that 100%, John. And I think that, at the end of the day, you reap what you sow, and look what's in your life. And that's really, really important to take away. And on the hockey note, something popped up into my mind with Wayne Gretzky, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think
I stop 100% of the shots you take.
Oh, there you go. That's how it's working. But you know what I mean, John? Your messaging is very clear, and it's very concise. And I love what it represents out there, not just to entrepreneurs and not just to business professionals, but true real estate professionals. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. And John, I know you're a super busy guy, but I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You are an official real estate Titan, my friend. So I have to tell you that. It's an official thing. But yeah, and everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention, your love and support out there. I really, really do appreciate it. And again, if you like what we're doing here, don't forget to like our pages, subscribe, and really engage with the community and give your thoughts into there. I have to give a shout out to our sponsor, Lion Bolt Media. So if you are looking to accelerate and grow your business on a digital standpoint, please take a look at lionboltmedia.com. We are live every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. We'll catch everybody on the next.
But I'll be back.
Yes, that'll be John 2.0. And John, it'd be an honor. It'd be an absolute honor to have you back, my friend. It was just incredible. But John, I will catch you soon. And everybody out there, I'll catch you soon. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk.
God bless you. Thank you, Bear.
Yeah, bye.